train me? You have a day off? You train every day?
Oh, I have a day off. The old me used to have one. Probably have two. When I turned 30, I rewarded myself with 2 days off. I think if you're training properly and you treat it like a proper job, you know, you're doing in the gym at 9:30 and second or third session, you know, finish at 4 or 5, then you can't do much more than that. That's Monday to Friday. So occasionally, if I've had a lighter week, I might train Saturday morning and then take the rest of the week.
I'm a bit less than that. Hence why I lost.
What age did you start competitive sport?
I started when I was competitive squash. I started playing when I was 5. Just went to started at Bishop's Norfolk Squash Club. My dad played there, and I think he just took me along when he was playing Saturday mornings. I just run around the court and start playing with a sponge ball and a small racket. And yeah, I must have enjoyed it. I don't remember too much about when I first started, but yeah, it just progressed to playing squash, and at that age I was only playing once or twice a week, Saturday mornings, junior morning, and then if I could drag my dad along on a weeknight after school, then I would. And competitively, I think I actually played my first tournament in Norfolk. I think it was the Cromer Junior Open when I was 6 or 7. I lost 27 love first round. I was about 2 years older than me, playing under 10s, and I just couldn't get his serve back. Just too good. He had a perfect lob serve. Lost 27 love. And then James Wilstrop was actually playing in the same tournament. So, and yeah, it was that was my first one. Memorable experience.
What's your record between the two of you in competitions?
First time we played, I didn't get a point from it.
Oh yeah, glad you brought it up actually. I'll give you that tenner later.
No, I mean, Daryl was a better junior than me.
You started playing later than me, though.
Yeah, all the way through really, until Daryl went to university at 18 and I went full time. So, and then I guess sort of those 18 to 21 pretty formative years for us on the tour, and so I had maybe a bit of a head start.
Definitely, Pete, I think Pete beat me the first probably 4 or 5 times in PSA, definitely. I mean, we've played loads through juniors and leagues and all sorts, but I think PSA probably 4,
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, you've won the last 4
Won the last 4. Yeah. Talked him out of it.
What's a typical training session?
On court one. I think it varies really. Both of us do like a lot of different types of training. On court, we go to Potter's Bar, which is round in Hertfordshire, and there's a coach there called Paul Carter, who takes some really good group sessions. There's some younger players coming through, Adrian Waller, Ben Coleman, Charles Sharps. You know, I guess they're lucky enough, not to say this arrogantly, but they're lucky enough to get on court with high-ranked players like myself and Pete. You know, we were in the same situation a long time ago where we were trying our best to get on with high-ranked players, because the more you play against people that are better than you improve, especially when you're young. You can learn a lot from that. So we do a lot of group sessions, play practice matches, and have feeding sessions with the coach. I think I work with a few different coaches, but I think Pete is Chris Robertson only.
Yeah.
He's our national coach, so it varies really. Yeah, between like routine-based stuff and condition games, practice matches, lots of different types of things.
What sort of stuff would you do in the gym?
I think that's the beauty of squash, is that it's kind of a real mix of aerobic and anaerobic stuff. So, I used to do a lot of aerobic stuff. When you're 18, you need to build up your strength and your aerobic capacity, I guess, to catch up with the guys on the tour. Whereas nowadays I do more sort of power stuff, so plyometric type circuits. Because I guess I've sort of done years of aerobic stuff. I don't need to do too much of that now, but I just need to stay sharp. Oh, yeah. It's a living.
image and the money of tennis. It really is the line of sport. We didn't get into the Olympics. Is it, everybody pleads poverty, but how is it on professional circuit as squash player financially?
Can I start saying quickly? He just paid 800 quid for 7 plants in his garden.
Was that opium?
You want to know what type? No, joking aside, I mean, it's as you say, it's not the same as tennis, golf, any of those sorts of sports. We don't get as much media coverage, which is a shame. As you said, the Olympics would have brought us a lot more investment, should we say, like development from grassroots. A lot of the federations across the world would have invested a lot of money, the Olympic associations, into a new sport, which is, I think that's the biggest shame, to be honest. It's not the fact that we can't compete necessarily. I think it's the fact, if you look at the sport as a whole, I think it's a shame that many more people would be playing the game for an Olympic sport, and that's the shame really, because it is a great game. And so for me, that's the biggest heartache really. So myself and Pete, we train hard to earn a living and provide for our family. It's not tennis standards or anything like that.
What was the prize
pay the
money?
bills.
What's the prize money for the biggest tournament? The prize money for like the UK Open, if you win it.
The biggest prize money we have is for the World Championships, which is has been for the last 5 years, but it's $325,000 for the whole tournament. So it's broken down into percentages, so the winner gets
20,
about just under.
Yeah, like 19%. So if you see a prize money attached to an event, that's the total purse, and then the winner will receive about 20% of that total purse. But that's, that's one tournament a year that we have that purse, and the rest are sort of between 70 to $150,000. So it's like, it depends which way you look at it. It's a really hard sport to earn a living. When you're nearer the top, you can earn a pretty decent living, but there's only a handful of players that can do that. Ultimately, Daryl and I both didn't get into squash to probably even be professional. We got in because we enjoyed it. So to be able to do our hobby for a living, I think we have to also be appreciative of that and try and invest the small amount of money that we make in other ways. Yeah.
Why is the Egyptians seem to be coming on strong and coming through as well?
I think it's an interesting question because it's actually quite hard to say. I'd say it's become one of their biggest sports. You think it's easy? Yeah.
I think it's quite easy just because they have numbers. They have junior tournaments like every weekend, 128 players. There's like reserve list. It's a national game for them. Football and squash are their national games. Simple as that. So they've got numbers and naturally cream come to the top, and they produce some good players because the competition is very high. I think that's where we struggle in this country, is that we are nothing taken away from coaches or anything like that, but we are very coached and not enough competition, whereas they are rarely coached, technically, but they just compete. And I think they know how to win, they know how to compete. They hit the ball and handle if they have to. They're just kind of very, very adaptable, whereas a lot of the players that are coming up, and us included a little bit, we're very coached and very sort of manufactured, and they think they're a little bit more natural.
Who do you both not like playing? Who's your least favourite opponent? If you were drawn against somebody, who would you really not want to play?
Genuinely him, but that's for other reasons rather than, that's just because don't want to play a good friend. Yeah. But I would say Gaultier for me is the hardest to play in terms of...
Why is that?
Because he's
politically correct.
Number one in the world at the moment. I think it's his style of game. Yeah. He's very hard to break down, physically very good. Yeah. His strongest area is also my strongest area, which is never nice playing against someone that because you always try to get the ball into an area that you're comfortable with at the end of the day. And if they're maybe a little bit better than you in that area, that's their strong area as well. Then it's sometimes the clash of styles. I'd much rather play Nick or James or any of the other top players really. Probably not Bradley, but I've only played Bradley once, so it's hard to say.
What about you, Peter?
Before I answer that, I think with Greg, it's because we were saying to someone earlier, he plays like at 8 or 9, like every rally. Like there's no letter. But then, I mean, we've both beaten him once or twice, but more times we've lost because he plays 8 or 9 and then all of a sudden he just drops. And he either mentally or physically literally just drops off a cliff. But to get him to that point, you've got to put an hour and a half and stay on court with him for an hour and a half. And it's very physically and mentally very demanding. So that's why I think he just keeps a very high level. I mean, Greg is certainly one of the hardest players for me to play as well. I don't hugely enjoy playing Nick, to be honest. I don't know.
Why is that? Is that because he's physically?
Yeah, I just had some weird matches with him, and he's like on off court stuff, and just for me, don't enjoy it. I mean, I've managed to get a couple of wins over him, but hard work.
So James must be feeling pretty right at the moment, losing 16 times in the trot.
Yeah. I send them a text just to remind them. No, it's good. We're with the Europeans coming up at the end of the month, and it's actually nice. We're all pretty good friends off the court actually.
Yeah.
Despite what Nick and James try and portray, they get on fine. I mean, they're not like similar characters at all, chalk and cheese, but when we put on an England shirt, I think everyone's ego goes out the window, and you're playing you're representing the country and playing for the people sat behind the court, and I think they're very good at that. They, in fairness, they always put in a phenomenal shift for England. So, I think it's all sort of hype and media and whatever. But
do you think that squash in the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow this year, do you think that will help the profile of squash with a view to becoming an accepted Olympic sport?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, last Commonwealth Games in Delhi, we were one of the only sports ever to get gold, silver, bronze in the individual. England. So Nick got gold, James got silver, and I was fortunate enough to get the bronze. And we were, I think, on the news that night behind one of the hurdlers that he got bronze. But I mean, that shows you the media sort of interest, if you like. So I mean, I don't think we could have done much better than gold, silver, and bronze. I want to be optimistic, but I'm long in the tooth, and I'm not, unfortunately. Yeah, we do.
If you start with a match and you realise fairly early on Mark doesn't really seem to know what he's doing.
He has just got his MVQ level 2 as well.
I can tell.
Yeah. We've both got our opinions on the rest. Pretty similar.
Would you prefer the players to mark yourselves if you could?
Ex-players. Okay, so at the moment there's real investment in the game with the TV and commentary and stuff, and for us, I think we both agree that there should be the same investment in refereeing. Because it's a career at stake, and the turnover of players is such that if you're not good enough, you just fade away. Now the referees really should be the same. There should be a turnover of players, of referees by ex-players, but the trouble is it's financially not viable for refs. They get paid an absolute pittance, and so I think for PSA they're talking about bringing in some people to try and improve it, but fundamentally you need to invest some money into that, and then all of a sudden you would get, the likes of Daryl and I with 30, perhaps 5 years time when we we're not playing anymore, we're not on the tour, perhaps we would go to a tournament to ref, maybe catch up with a few friends for a week, if it was financially viable.
If you're getting paid to do it as well, you be professional about it. You know, you make sure you.
And the standard would go up.
Personally respect
The rules and exactly.
Absolutely.
Because it's such a fast game, do you think there's any space in marking in relation to televised playback, like you now have in rugby and they haven't got in football? Do you think that would be practical?
We've got a review system which has actually worked pretty well. So the same way as Peter managed to get one review this evening.
He still wants it.
I'll roll that over.
We get one video review when at the big tournaments. Per game. And so if you don't agree with the decision, you can ask for a review, and then another referee is sitting outside the arena who will then watch it back and probably make the same decision.
It doesn't work. I mean, the concept is, I think, good, but it doesn't work because the refs sort of collaborate and they try and support each other, and like, you know, should be completely independent. They shouldn't know the original decision. So they currently get it on the screen. Yes, it's a let. So are they going to go against their friend? Perhaps not. So I don't know. I think you need one central umpire and then you need one video ref, preferably an ex-player, because it's not about the decision whether it's a correct one or not, because we all make mistakes and there's such a grey area, but it's about the acceptance of the decision. I think it's easier to accept from perhaps an ex-player than it is from a keen enthusiast.
We want to see the reps on the first way in the top players on the court decision.
Yeah, for sure. Like, the higher ranked player always, you know, seems to get a preference. I was having quite a nice evening up there.
What do you keep easy drink? What are you not allowed?
Fish finger again.
Apparently it's very good.
Nobody lives off them.
Yeah, that's very good.
I love food. I'm not that fussy with it, to be honest. I don't eat. I mean, this sounds absolutely terrible. Kids, close your eyes, but I have I have Dominoes at least once a week. At least once a week. No, I have it once a week. It's a bit of a treat, but no, I don't. I mean, look, if you're training hard and you sort of burn off the calories, it's not going to make like I don't know, huge amount of difference. That's my excuse.
Yeah, I don't have a Dominoes once a week. I mean, it's not.
It's me going wrong.
It's quite expensive, isn't it?
Not much is class.
That's true. No, I mean, sensibly, I would say. It's not rocket science. I mean,
Everything in moderation.